crap working? Is it working? Okay. Hopefully something's happening. I hope something is happening. Ah, crap, I can't see. Is that working? Is it working? Ah, cheese and rice. What a freaking nightmare that was. Holy crap. Oh, dude, all right. Welcome. It's working, and I'm going to touch nothing at all. Because if I do, I'm going to be stuck in this friggin' nightmare again. All right. So, I think, are we? Ah, we're there. Okay. Click on that one. Click on this. And click there. Sorry, I'm still trying to get this crud actually working here. There. Okay. All right. All right. If I don't touch anything too terrible, hopefully nothing awful will happen. That was like, what was that, 20 minutes to just get the stupid computer rebooted? Oh, buddy. Okay, so, oh, of course it doesn't say, what the hell? I can't even participate in chat because for some reason it says I'm not signed in. So, yes. Okay, got it. There we go. All right. I can see chat now. I think we're good. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to version 5 of today's episode. And let's see if this works. Okay, I missed like 5 super chats from the previous one when all hell broke loose. Sorry about that. I have no idea how to get those back. But here we are. Let's hit the chat here. All right, Drew J says, I really want to hear Houston's thoughts on what the younger like me should do with all this MOAS money. I'm in my early 20s. Should I retire early? I see no problem with retiring early, honestly. Simply because you get to do what you want to do. And if what you want to do is, you know, travel, do it. If you want to do your dream job, do that. I came very close to retirement at age 19 when I was working with Rivals.com. And I had like $3 million in stock options, and wasn't allowed to exercise any of it for another 3 months before. And we show up to work, and the doors were locked, and the company didn't exist anymore. So the stock options I had, which were like $145, went to zero and just disappeared. And yeah, that was. The owner of the company ended up forming another similar company called like Scout.com or something, and he's a billionaire today. But Houston is not. So, you know, back to college. Okay. So what younger people should do is, I would set up some sort of fund. Set something up. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. You just want to make sure that you can get a steady monthly income and not have to worry about having work. Like, you know, the future is uncertain. At least set yourself up so you can pay your rent, pay for food, do whatever nominal expenses you have, and hope from there. Go from there. You're young. You got your whole life ahead of you. You may as well explore and see what you want to do. You know, if you want to go to school, go to school. If you want to start your own company, you can do that. If you want to just sit and play video games, I guess do that. You can live the dream in your early 20s. You got another 60 years of figuring it out. So go for it. Easy E sends a super chat and says, still better than tech support from Robin Hood. All right. Oh. Okay. Let's see here. Am I... Missing. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, super chat's popping up. I still don't know how to get this to kind of drag and drop. Nope. I'm afraid if I try to touch anything on this, I'm going to break things more. Thomas Siracusa, I think I'm saying that right. If you absolutely had to sell a limit for metamaterials, what would it be? Thanks and keep up the good work. Oh man, someone asked me this earlier on Twitter, and I honestly don't know how high it can go. Like, we saw Newegg go to $77 this month as a result of their recent merger and CUSIP change. Is it unlikely to see metamaterials get that high? Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe do the same thing you plan on. I plan on doing with GameStop, and just set a price you think is reasonable and sell one share at that limit, and then start selling one share after that, and just see where it gets you. You probably get a maybe you can drive the price up to $100 or something that way. But I don't think seeing it go to 77 would be out of sight. It hit 21 or 22 right before the merger, so we know it can get into the tens of dollars. Yeah. Deck P says, I double dare you to Google Earth your next road trip. I use Google Earth for all that stuff. Google Earth, I love Google Earth. If I can actually share a screen someday without crashing this entire system, I will show you how many pins I have in Google Earth. It's ridiculous. There's, I don't know, 500 pin locations put into Google Earth. The computer actually slows down when I turn on the pins. It's like, I can't do that. Cole Kelly, I need your wise words. If someone had 200 AMC and 10 GME, would they make enough of MOAS to rub it in their cheating ex's face? Asking for a friend. Very likely. I mean, the 10 GME alone theoretically could be worth millions. So that seems like a good face rubbing area, the zone of face rubbing. 200 AMC. I mean, if AMC gets to $10,000, $100,000 a share, you're looking at what, $20 million. That's not a bad winning. So I think you can rub faces with that. Okay, let's see here. All right. There's a. I've risen from the dead here. Okay. Protege son, all that talk about Houston not being old, but you can't figure out the VCR settings. That's where we are. I'm like a wise old wizard who just can't figure shit out and looks 100 years younger than he is. Okay. Yes, I'm not going to try anything that might screen cap anything else. You're stuck looking at me. No Google Earth today. I can only use my hands to describe things. Yeah. James Bailey says there's a new stream of coronavirus has messed up my new variant of the coronavirus has messed up my stream. Yeah. All right, Protege Son, what do you think about Adam Aaron's tweets today? Lots of people thinking he's being cryptic, but seems like he didn't need to mention anything about synthetic at all. Anyway, since he can't speak on them. I don't know why he mentioned the synthetic shares. Basically, if you guys didn't read the tweets, basically he said there's 513 million shares of GameStop. I cannot say anything about there being synthetic shares or naked shorts. I can't talk about that. There's no way to count that, so we're not going to mention it. But he did mention it. So I don't know why he did. Because he can't say, like, hey, without having definitive proof, hey, there's this many synthetic shares out there, because it could be seen as manipulation, insider manipulation, and driving the stock price up via that manipulation. So I think what they're waiting to do is actually find some way to actually count how many synthetic shares are out there. I mean, if I were CEO of a company like that, that's what I'd be trying to do. Trying to do some sort of survey or census or something. So I'm not really sure where he was going with those tweets, other than just kind of putting the synthetics into people's brains, or that they might be out there, but then not doing his Glomar, we can neither confirm nor deny type thing. So, yeah. Setting Bull says, nice shirt. Yes, this is a batik from Bali, Indonesia, that a friend brought back for me. I have a couple of friends that, one works part-time there. He does a really interesting job where people build their homes out of tropical hardwoods, teak and things like that. And when families there can be huge. They can be like 10, 12 kids. And when the kids all move out, the parents have a whole bunch of extra house. And so my friend and his company go to those people and say, hey, can we dismantle the parts of your house you don't need anymore, and we'll pay you for it. So they like take these rooms, these old childhood bedrooms out, they recycle the wood and make fancy furniture out of it, and they can sell this kind of sustainable teak hardwood furniture. So they spend a lot of time in Bali doing that, and every once in a while they bring back some sweet batik shirts. Okay. Renegade Genius says, hey Houston, I saw we hit the 1 trillion cap. What do you think about that? One step closer to MOAS. Happy birthday. Yeah, the reverse repo market broke $1 trillion as of yesterday, I think. It's like $1,039,000,000,000. That's crazy. So I think that press release, put out by the SEC and the Federal Reserve the other day, when they said 500 billion for reverse repo, it must have been they're doing another 500 billion on top of what they have now, rather than reducing it to 500 billion. So, yeah. Kyungmin Yang, glad you're back putting aluminum foil on your moonstone, sir. I think it radiates space energy to you. Sorry, to your PC. I have to get some. Monkey, do you have any? That dog is so bored. Symbiotic Form super chats. Houston, do you know a great spot on the west to see the KT boundary? Oh man, okay. There was. I'm not going to share a screen. Don't share a screen. Okay, so there's a spot in southern Nevada. It's been a while since I've been there. Sorry, I'm waiting for something to load here so I can describe the exact way to get there without having to show Google Earth. And of course it's a PDF and it wants to take just forever. Come on, buddy. We got this. You can do it. Is it like a 12 gigabyte PDF or something? Why aren't you loading? There we go. Okay. Oh, it's not even the one I wanted. Dang it, you jerk. Okay. All right. So where are you, Symbiotic Form, exactly in the west? Because there's lots of spots. You can see it in like the Belt Supergroup from Montana up through Alberta. It's a really cool rock layer. It's like by Flathead Lake up there. You can also see it in some of the Basin Range in Utah and Nevada. For those who don't know the KT boundary, 63 million-ish years ago, a huge comet or asteroid or whatever smacked into the Yucatan, making a gigantic explosion, huge fireball explosion, and then covering the world in dust for years, basically killing off the dinosaurs. And that boundary has a radioactive iridium in it, a very thin layer of dust that comes from outer space objects. And so, below that layer of dust, Then all settled. Below that layer of dust, dinosaurs. Above that layer of dust, no dinosaurs. And so it was discovered in Italy, I believe. The KT boundary was discovered in Italy. And there's some spots in the west you can see it pretty easily. Let's see here. It's got to be a list of cool spots to see it. Like I'm in Washington State, and I don't think there's any rocks that old, so you really can't see any of them. Prehistoric places, North America. All right. Come on, man. That's just listing Meteor Crater. This is a nightmare trying to search things on the internet without showing you guys. But I would recommend doing your own Google search and going to looking for rocks that are more than 63 million years old that are exposed, and you'll be able to look through the layers of rock until you get to that 63 million year part, and you'll begin to see the KT band. It's just this thin little black line that goes across. It's maybe a centimeter thick at most, and that's the stuff that's rich in iridium. And again, below that dinosaurs, above that no dinosaurs. I do recommend going to the Belt Supergroup someday in Montana. That's I had some friends that got married at Flathead Lake there, and just the mountains were gorgeous. And Flathead Lake's also the coolest Indian reservation in America, I think. Okay. Be real time. Your thoughts on metamaterial T33, 35 in the next few weeks. Should we expect to see more price drop or increase? I think we'll see increase as we go along. Someone sent me a link saying the T35 isn't business days, it's just calendar days. And if that's the case, then the T35 would be on like Monday. Because that'd be 35 days from when they moved to the NASDAQ under the new QSIP. But we aren't seeing any price action on it today that would suggest that Monday is the T35. So maybe we'll start seeing stuff happen next week. If it's going to climb, it might be kind of where the lowest it will be right now. So it's coming. It's coming. I think metamaterials is going to see a pop, and then then trade as a legit share for a while until they start getting shorted again. Sewell 1323, is bank audit happening after close of market today, or is that debunked? I'm not sure. Charlie's vid says it's no big deal, it happens all the time. And Finn Watchdog says, hey, no, this time is different. What they want to see is all liabilities basically laid out in the open. And the other big thing is that those 11 new rules, SEC rules, passed out of committee and into discussion in the main chamber in the House. And a lot of those rules are pretty restrictive. They involve, rather than quarterly reporting, the banks have to report every single month and show all of their liabilities and equity. That includes, the margins of institutions that trade under them. And the other thing is possibly banning payment for order flow. Payment for order flow right now is mostly directed into the dark pools, which is a huge problem because it removes buy pressure from the exchange, which is where the price is listed. If they're going to keep payment for order flow, they should be forced to do it through the exchange, through the main exchanges, so that we can see what prices these items are selling for, and it can be reflected as volume that day. I guess we'll find out if that is going to be eliminated. I mean, if they eliminate payment for order flow, it basically destroys the business models of Webull, SoFi, Robinhood, and numerous others that are offering commission-free trades. So we might go back to those nominal commissions like we had for the last 20 years or so, where you pay $4 a trade or whatever. Chris Taylor, do you see any long-term solutions to the water resource issues in the Southwest? Is it getting close for this to have significant impact on the habitability, economy, GDP? No go Earth, please, thanks. I think so. I mean, it's been, what, 40 years since the Colorado River ever made it to the Gulf of California. We are sucking water out of the ground in the California Central Valley like crazy. We are undergoing significant droughts as that high pressure region in the 30-degree latitudes grows and grows and grows. We get less and less rainfall. And when the rainfall does come, it comes in huge spurts rather than, through seasonal snow accumulations. I mean, they'll get days where it rains 6 inches in a day, and then flash floods and all the fires that burn through the region in the summertime cause all sorts of landslides. I mean, you're looking at what? You got 40 million people in California, another 7 million in Arizona, 4 million in Nevada, 5 or 7 million in Colorado. You have this whole region where there's 50, 60 million people that rely upon one river for their water source, and that river is drying up. As the glaciers recede in the mountains, as the snowpack dwindles every year, that water level is dropping naturally, combined with the fact that we're sucking it all out to grow almonds and water lawns and to feed and bathe people. I think we might see some water crisis happening. Desalination in California will probably be really important, but that's also very energy consuming. So we're going to need more drastic and reliable methods of green energy to make that worthwhile. It's getting gnarly. The temperatures are getting absolutely insane. I mean, they're looking at a couple weeks ago it hit over 130 in Death Valley, possibly breaking, the world record that had been there before. I was out there, it was 118. It's absolutely inhuman, and shouldn't be 118 that time of year. So we're looking at some definite drastic change in the Southwest. I mean, here in Seattle, we've experienced our driest winter, driest spring, and possibly driest summer ever. I'm just surprised that this side of the mountains has not caught on fire yet. The other side of the mountains, plenty of fire. Out in the Methow Valley, where I like to go gold mining, is just blazes everywhere. Every single year, it just burns down, burns down, and burns down. So, yeah. Okay. Shane Hanlon, what are your thoughts on Gary Gensler's tweet? I didn't see a tweet from Gary Gensler yet. I've been focusing on why my stupid computer won't work. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find something really quick. Gary Gensler Twitter. 6 hours ago. So this is what Gary Gensler tweets. This is from yesterday. About 6 months ago, a stock went from $20 to $480 and back down to $40, all in a matter of weeks. I think these events are part of a larger story about the intersection of finance and technology. When new technologies come along and change the face of finance, how do we continue to achieve our core public policy goals and ensure that markets work for everyday investors? Check out my testimony there. I think he's saying possibly that there might be some changes coming to how we regulate these new technologies. Hopefully he's not blaming the retail investors for that, and he's blaming the big boys for manipulating the markets and the retail investors for pointing it out and doing something about it finally. I think so many millions of us are shining a giant light on the malfeasance of these big institutions that the powers that be won't be able to ignore it because they know that there's a storm coming and they're going to have to do something about it. Okay. David F., I have not heard if they've raised or suspended the debt ceiling. They've got until midnight tomorrow. So they've got 35 4 and some change hours to get it done. Okay. Renegade Geniuses. Hey, Houston, hedgies have been hiding 1 million options in Brazil Credit Suisse. Hell interesting how they get so creative with their crimes. What's your take on it? I think that's what we're seeing is those debt swaps. So those FTDs get to T35 and they find another subsidiary or institution and they just trade them back and forth. And when they do that, they reassign the name on the ownership of that debt and it resets to another T35 date. So my guess is we'll probably see this stuff bounce around from institution to institution and subsidiary to subsidiary, specifically to hide those positions from everyone. If we had a blockchain for the stock market, they wouldn't be able to do that. We would be able to see everywhere that stuff went and who had it and why and for how long. And well, you wouldn't be able to sell naked anyway with the right blockchain. So that what we're seeing is just this kind of cabal at work, and they all know that they're all empty and they don't have the cash they need for the deeds they've done, and they're just desperately trying to move this stuff around to hide it from the authorities and everyone else. And if you can take that debt and you can hide it offshore, then there's nothing the SEC can do about it, right? I mean, the SEC does not work in Brazil, so they can't be like, hey, give us those shares back. They can't do that. Code Fate 190. If the debt ceiling is raised, the Treasury issues more bonds for banks to buy. Would that lower the reverse repo market? Possibly. Right now, the Treasury hasn't been issuing any new bonds as of late. So that the amount of bonds out there is kind of dwindling. And they were doing direct injection of cash into the market for the last few months and really haven't been issuing bonds. The big thing with the debt ceiling being raised is because the U.S. government is kind of screwed up and because the world depends upon the stability of U.S. bonds for so much of our financial stability around the entire globe, is that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we don't have the cash available to pay interest on those bonds. So, yeah, I wonder how much debt they would issue if we raise the ceiling and how fast they would do that debt. I'm sure we're going to need it if the infrastructure bills all pass, because that'll be, $4 trillion over the next 10 or 20 years, and that money's got to come from somewhere. So it's probably going to come from issuing bonds. And it's so weird, like, that we have to get permission from Congress to issue things that we're going to need anyway. Other countries don't do it that way. It's like, well, if we're in deficit, we just issue bonds, and that's what we do. But here we need someone to go, well, I don't know if we should issue that debt, and then the world ends. Okay. Easy E, nuclear plus desalination. Yeah. Nuclear power is a great way to desalinate because you can actually use the nuclear energy to heat water going through pipes that turns it to steam. That steam essentially distills that water, and you can condense it in the tower and make fresh water out of it. The issues are right now in California, they're taking the one nuclear power plant that's along the ocean offline down in San Onofre. And because it's not necessarily set up for earthquakes, it's really close to the water and in the tidal flood zone. And so they're like, we're not going to Fukushima this bad boy. So they're taking it offline. Daily asks, what major resource do you think will run out of first? Ooh. Man. 20 years ago, I would have said oil. Mainly because fracking didn't really exist. And we were reaching peak oil. But with fracking, we've basically quite quintupled the oil reserves by being able to get stuff out of the shale. So oil might last longer than anyone had previously thought. But man, what resource we run out? Probably helium. We'll probably run out of helium, regular helium that we use in like party balloons and to cool supercomputers and things like that. We've wasted so much helium on like children's birthday parties that we'll likely run out of the stuff in the next 10 or 20 years. And then we will have no way to cool off supercomputers because liquid helium is like the best cooling mechanism we could possibly have for that. Yeah. So, oh crap, I got a phone call coming in here. Can you guys give me one pause for a second? I gotta take this phone call that's coming in. I'll be back in just a minute. All right. Yo. I'm well. How are you? Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Sometimes people call and you have to answer the phone call. There we go. What was I saying? Helium. We're running out of helium. Because we do party balloons and we take this very important finite resource that can easily escape our atmosphere and we suck it out of balloons and talk funny for a while and then we breathe and laugh and it floats to the atmosphere and we just hop the atmosphere and just disappears forever. We do have a strategic helium reserve. We've got wells that have been drilled and there happens to be a whole bunch of helium trapped inside of cavities and rocks. And that's where we get our helium from. Is when the Earth was a molten goo ball, we had all this material and stuff crashing into the Earth, and the heavy stuff was sinking down to the bottom, and the light stuff was floating to the top. Well, a whole bunch of that light stuff is still trying to float to the top, but getting stuck trapped inside rocks. And so if there's a nice big cavity, it can fill with gas, it can fill like natural gas, it can fill with helium, it can fill with oil, it can fill with water. So a lot of that material is trying to rise up, gets trapped in there, and that's where all of our helium comes from that we use. We literally mine helium out of the earth. We drill a hole and suck it out. And we are running out of holes that have helium in it. And so yeah, I think helium's going to be the first big one we lose out on. Okay. Harris Wasim, Houston, thoughts on Lou versus Wall Street, saying this is all managed and we won't reach high prices or be able to sell at those prices. I mean, it could be all managed, but what I'm seeing from everyone is that they aren't manage. Excuse me, I'm so burpy. They aren't managing the actual squeeze. What they're doing is they're managing in kind of crisis mode, trying to like sweep things under the rug, and without actually covering the hundreds of millions or billions of naked shares for all these stocks that they've generated, there's going to be a comeuppance. And I don't know. I have a hard time watching Lou. The dude gives me the willies. And I don't know what it is. Like, I watch clips of his videos. I'm like, something about that guy just doesn't sit well with me. And I don't know. Maybe he's gonna sue me for saying that now. But yeah, I don't think it's managed in the way that they're going to control the price forever. I think it's more they're desperately trying to pass the buck and avoid their responsibilities, and while they desperately try to figure out how they can solve this. I think that's kind of where we are. All right. Oh, I lost that question there. Oh, Dr. Stonk, yeah, asking the 1 million puts in Brazil. Should Wall Street be afraid? This is from Matthew Abner. Should Wall Street be afraid of a loss in confidence in the market? Hard to justify putting money in knowing what we know now. What happens if millennials, Gen Z just stop investing, including in 401ks? We might see that. Someone kind of tweeted me the same question the other day, and my thoughts are a lot of people are going to take their winnings from this, and they won't necessarily reinvest in the market, but they're going to reinvest in themselves and their friends and family. And that means, if your best friend is like, hey man, I want to start a brewery, that you might cut a check for 49% ownership in that brewery and they can live their dream. Or, their wife wants to start a business of some kind in town and they make a little shop and, they use that money to make a shop. Or they invest in real estate. Or they, help their cousin out with a loan on their propane business or whatever. I think we might see a whole bunch of investment on the small scale that isn't necessarily in the market with these winnings. So a whole bunch of that money might just get pulled out of the market in general and put into friends and family and charity and things like that. So there is a lot of distrust by the younger generations of the institutions championed by the older generations who have essentially screwed everyone over. The amount of wealth owned by the boomers when they were in their 20s and 30s was like 25% of all the wealth. Gen Z was like 7%, and Gen X was at 7%, and millennials and Gen Z is like 3%. So our proportion of wealth is so much smaller. And in the article I read about that a while ago, it was like, an appreciable percent of all the wealth owned by millennials was Mark Zuckerberg. He was like 3% of all the wealth of Americans in that range. Hey buddy, come on up. You lost your bandana. Where'd you go? She tried killing a possum the other night, and I had to stop her because possums are our buddies. Raccoons, cool, take care of them. Coyotes, take care of them, but not the little possums. She was having a fun time though. Okay. Oh, get that fly. Get it. It's flying all over the place. Get it, monkey. Get it. Might see some dogs jumping over me here in a second. All right. Captain Johnson. People apparently have more cash than ever, but landlords still can't evict. Right, I need a domino to fall already. Yeah, one of those things is going to happen. Someone's going to slip up somewhere in Congress and not get a bill out there in time and not pass something. I mean, we're looking at Monday. All these people are open to foreclosure and eviction. And you better believe that there's a whole bunch of banks out there looking at the price of homes and like, man, we gave them a loan for $300,000 on this house 15 years ago. We can foreclose on them and sell the house for $1 million. And they're eyeballing it as, ooh, if I can get there first and evict this person, I can make a killing. And they're not warm and cuddly. They don't care about you. Nobody loves you but your mother. They will take advantage of that, and they will take that house from under you, and they'll sell it if they can. So if you are one of those people who are facing possible foreclosure on a home, you want to check and see how many times your mortgage has been sold to another institution. And if it's been sold several times along the way, it's likelihood the promissory note did not make it to the most recent institution. And if you get foreclosed on, you've got this one neat trick you can do, which is challenge them in court to produce the promissory note with your signature. In the economic collapse of 08, 09, there's quite a few people who end up getting their homes essentially for free because the banks could not provide the promissory note for foreclosing, and as a result, the ownership and deed was given to the person living in the home. So there was a famous story about a guy, I want to say he was in Colorado, and Wells Fargo had foreclosed on him, but Wells Fargo had purchased his mortgage from some other entity, and they couldn't provide the promissory note. And so the court ruled the home was his, and then also gave him the $9,000 in legal fees for that. And Wells Fargo didn't pay. And then there's a strange rule in Colorado where you can put a lien on a business and take their property if they haven't paid you. So he foreclosed on the local Wells Fargo bank branch in his town and gave them 24 hours to pay him his legal fees, or he owned the bank branch and everything inside. And better believe it, Wells Fargo wrote a check for $9,000 real quickly and gave it to him. There was when Washington Mutual got taken over. So Washington Mutual, the FDIC goes in and shuts them down, and then overnight awards $300 billion in Washington Mutual assets with basically no bids to Jamie Dimon and Chase Manhattan for like $1 billion. It was like a third of a penny on the dollar or something. Well, all those people at Washington Mutual that were redundant got laid off. Well, some of those people were the ones who paid for offsite storage of records. And there was a warehouse in Mexico where all of these promissory notes were stored. We're talking promissory notes for probably 20 million homes or something, because Washington Mutual was the largest savings and loan in the entire world. And there's no longer the person at Washington Mutual writing a check for that storage. So after a while, the warehouse in Mexico is like, well, we're just going to dump all this stuff. So they threw away millions and millions and millions of promissory notes tied to mortgages and deeds and everything else. And they all got incinerated or taken to the dump. And so when it came time for some of these, for Chase Manhattan to foreclose on some of these homes, they couldn't provide the promissory notes. So if you are one of those folks who might be facing foreclosure, challenge them to produce the promissory note. What do you have to lose, right? Be like, hey, where's the promissory note? And if they can't do it, the house is yours and not theirs. So do it. Susie Chi, thank you for I forgot what this thing's called, super emojis. Number one fan. Awesome, thank you, Susie. That's you can read up on it. Yeah, if you have anything, I had my identity stolen a few years ago, and somebody bought like $10,000 in computers on credit from Dell, right? And I was wondering why my credit report was just sucking. It was awful. I'm like, what the hell? Unpaid? I don't have this stuff. Until I got served with a suit from a credit collection company that was like, hey, you owe us $10,000 for all these computers you bought from Dell. I'm like, what? And so I went to court and I was like, hey, do you have a promissory note with my signature on it saying that that's my debt? And they're like, no. The judge said, well, absolved, done, no longer my problem. So those promissory notes go a big way. Okay. Lil Beef says helium is a byproduct of some of the new fusion reactor tech, so we might be okay if that stuff gets off the ground. Yes. We will be mining helium-3, which is an isotope of helium. Normally helium is 2 protons, 2 neutrons, makes a happy helium atom. Well, in this case, it's 2 protons, 1 neutron is a nuclear isotope. And it's fairly easy for us with the technology we have to smack 2 of those helium-3s together and make higher order elements and get a ton of energy out of it. We only have like 25 kilograms of helium-3 on the entire planet Earth. So we don't have much we can do research with. But the moon is full of it, and that's why Bezos and China and India and Japan and Israel and the European Space Agency and everyone's racing to the moon right now, because they realize that there's like quintillions of dollars to be made off of all the helium-3 that's there. because the sun radiates all sorts of charged particles and isotopes out of it, and all day long that helium-3 is passing through our solar system, just radiating outwards in the solar winds from the sun. And when it hits our atmosphere, it goes boing and disappears off into space. When it hits the moon, it sticks to the dust and statically bonds to it like a sock out of the dryer. And it's been doing that for 4.5 billion years. So we are going to the moon to shake loose all those little helium socks from the dust of the moon, and then take that stuff back to Earth and generate a whole bunch of energy with it. And so we're about to have imports of helium-3 for a long time. Basically 10,000 years of energy at U.S. consumption levels based on the known reserves on the moon. Okay. Da-da-da. Yeah, sorry. I'm ditching you for date night. I promised a friend who I haven't seen in a while that Monkey Butt and I would walk with he and his Dalmatians and have a nice long chat for the evening. So got a bro date with a buddy. Okay. Yeah, sorry I took my phone call. Monkey Butt. Come on. Come on. People want to see you. There you go. There's the Monkey Butt for you. She doesn't want to be up there. She's like, meh, floor. Okay. Ian Rain, we're one of those open evictions, can't find an apartment anywhere. It's awful. Yeah, man. I don't think a lot of landlords are thinking this through. That, you know, I don't know how many of you are renters or have rented in the past, but when you rent, generally you fill out an application, you get some sort of credit check, they check your references, and they hem and haw, and they usually, you know, pick the person who's the best creditor or whatever to rent the place. If all of a sudden the market's flooded with people who are evicted, landlords are going to check their credit report and go, oh, I can't rent to this person. And then those places are going to sit empty for a long, long time. If those places sit empty for a long, long time, all of a sudden the price of the rents drop because they're trying to bring in somebody to rent this place. Oh, I don't want it to sit empty forever. And so the value of all those rents drop as more and more places are empty and sit empty for a long period of time. And there's all of a sudden just a glut on the market. So supply and demand. These landlords need to be figuring out ways to, you know, help their tenants. There's a whole bunch of grant money that went to every single county in America to help people pay their back rent. We're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars went to all these counties. So the landlords need to be like, hey, you should take advantage of this program, get that sweet check, and then we can pay off the rent and we're cool. But a lot of them aren't doing that. A lot of them are like, I'm going to get this loser out of here, not realizing that there's nothing but other losers to take their place. So they're not going to find that ideal tenant. They're just going to find somebody who got kicked out of their last place for the exact same reasons they're kicking somebody out of the current place. So, yeah, it's a pretty terrible snowball I think we're going to have happen with not just the like real estate market for homes, but also we're going to have probably something similar for commercial real estate as well. Okay. Does this Friday seem like a weird day? It's a weird day for me so far. It's because I spent half an hour not figuring out how the hell my computer works. Okay. Andy L. Will you live stream during MOAS? Heck yeah. I mean, you might see me live stream during MOAS and be like, hold up a sec, I've got to sell something, and then doing that. But yeah, I'll be in there. Okay. Tropical TV. Could you land a tower on the moon that has opposite charge to the helium-3, filter it off the dust over years, and just launch it back? Theoretically, it probably would take a long, long time to get enough of it because Uh, you would thing is the moon's got huge surface area, so all that stuff's being bombarded over a large surface area for 4.5 billion years. So that's why we've got, you know, millions of tons. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but the last time somebody published something, you know, we're looking at certain regions of the moon that might cover an area the size of like Missouri, might have 2 million tons of helium-3. So that's a huge surface area to try and get that much material out of it. So you might need something other than a tower. You might need like a big dish, something like that to collect it all, and then take your dish and go home with it. Chris Taylor, is there value in orbiting space junk? If so, will salvaging that become a thing, be economical? What do you think will become exploited first, moon mining or junk salvage? Moon mining. Moon mining will probably start in the next 15 years. I bet the first helium-3 from the moon will be making its way back in about the next 15 years. Space junk is, you're going to have like titanium. You're going to have probably nice gold covered circuits up there. But I think salvaging space junk is going to be more of a necessity to keep from ever having Kessler syndrome be a thing. For those of you who don't know, Kessler syndrome is the hypothetical situation where two satellites collide and they make a whole bunch of debris. And that debris blasts outwards at 17,000 miles an hour and starts shredding other satellites nearby, which causes more debris to go outwards, which shreds more satellites, which causes more debris to go outwards. And eventually, every satellite in the low Earth orbit has been absolutely just annihilated by all this debris. And so we just have basically these ballistic bullets flying in random trajectories by the millions or billions, and we have no way to launch off of Earth's surface anymore for the next 5,000 years until all that stuff naturally degrades and burns up in our atmosphere. So we may need to have some sort of like cosmic vacuum cleaner that we send up there to just soak this material up and gather as much of it as we can to keep, you know, that one nut that slipped out of an astronaut's finger from destroying a GPS satellite, which then destroys a communication satellite, which then destroys an Earth observation satellite, that then, you know, and so on and so on and so on. I think we'll kind of treat space junk the way we need to treat oceanic litter, which is we need a big ship out there just scooping this stuff up and keeping it out of the bellies of whales and turtles and fish. Okay. Okay. How high do I think is from ARM 2? How high do I think the price of AMC will go? In the thousands. Easily, if not higher. It'll go as high as we make it go, I think, at some point. Okay. Carry MC. I know a few landlords that help tenants tap into those funds. Those are your smart landlords. Not everyone is aware that those programs exist. All these counties set up these funds specifically to help people with back rent. I have a roommate that we're working with it right now because when the economy got shut down, he was on unemployment. Unemployment was ridiculous. It was like $400 a month, and that doesn't pay the rent, doesn't pay for food, doesn't pay for anything. It pays for phone bill and a little bit else. Matt Everts, always enjoy your streams. More cola on me. Happy Friday. Thank you, Matt. I love myself some Mexicokes from Costco. That's where that's going. Okay. Andy L. Houston, it would be great to get your indications of when selling, not financial advice. With GameStop, I plan on selling one share when it reaches $100,000 and then working my way up. And I want to sell each share for 50% more than the previous share until I think we hit a peak. And when we hit a peak, I might just dump the rest of them. But it'll only take 7 shares to reach $1 million a share. And after 14 shares, they're like 20 million a share. So, there is a chance that I will hit somewhere near that peak with this method. And if I don't get too greedy, I can definitely retire. And that's my goal. I don't need to like own a submarine and a Bond villain castle and have a Gulfstream 5. I just want to be able to have a rad 4-wheel drive truck and drive around the country with my dog, smashing rocks and looking for stuff. That's all I really want to do. And if I can get there, then I'm doing it. I'm buying that Earth Roamer or building a Unimog or whatever that's totally bitching. Moo Poolin, did you hear about the 8.1 earthquake in Alaska? Does the Pacific plate moving in one place give a probability of an earthquake elsewhere? That's kind of a working theory with plate tectonics. And, the latest round of earthquakes probably started with the 9 point something that hit Sumatra in 2004. Because that seemed to have triggered large earthquakes basically around every subduction zone on the planet, except for some reason the Juan de Fuca subduction zone, or the Cascade subduction zone off of California, Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. But every other subduction zone has had a major earthquake at this point. Alaska's had a couple of them. Chile has had a couple of them. Japan had their giant one in 2011. We've seen them happen out off the plate boundaries in New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, all through there. So, when one section of plate gets the relief of an earthquake, it can cause the plate to move a bit more, a few inches in one direction or another, and that can put more stresses on other boundaries around the world. You'll notice an uptick in major earthquakes during full moons and new moons. We had a full moon a few days ago. That's because the tidal forces on the Earth are stronger when either the sun and moon are lined up or the sun and moon are opposite of each other, tugging away. And there is a relationship that way. I'm just waiting for the Juan de Fuca subduction zone to have a big one, because we're getting to its due date. Usually has a big one once every 300 years, and we are 321 years past that point. This is from Untun. Hi, Houston. What do you do to keep yourself level-headed in this emotional roller coaster of GME stock? I feel a lot is happening while also not moving. I walk my dog a lot. Monkey butt, you get walks. I take long walks. I go to the nearest little urban center, which is probably 3 or 4 miles away, and I'll get a Haagen-Dazs bar and walk to the beach and hang out on the beach. And then I'll walk back. And in the summertime, I'll steal plums out of people's yards and eat blackberries. And I do a lot of that walking. I also started going to the gym again, so getting yoked. I read a lot. I argue on the internet. Right now, people keep me busy with just DMs on Twitter alone, trying to answer everyone who messages me. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and my brain gets tired at the end of the day. I don't think I've answered so many questions in my entire life as I've done doing these live shows and just having people message me on Twitter. I went so long when no one gave a rip about me on Twitter. 10 years, no one cared. Every once in a while I had a good joke, and people were like, oh, that's funny. But people didn't ever message me, and then all of a sudden, I get 150 DMs a day. And that really takes a lot of my time trying to answer everybody. And I do try to answer every single person who messages me. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep doing that if this channel grows. I may have to just be like, I can't do this. But right now I'm trying my best. So yeah, hope that gives some insight. Just take walks. Walks are wonderful. They really clear the mind. Take a walk through the forest. Take a walk through your neighborhood. Meet people. Look at them. High five them. I don't know. It's a great way to move around. More faith than ever, DBA. I drove around your island in an 18-wheeler by accident. I'm not from Seattle. What a tight place that is. Seattle truck drivers are geniuses. I actually was behind somebody the other day who was in a giant 18-wheeler and obviously lost. And my God, they really were choosing some wrong roads to take turns down. I was like, oh my goodness, that guy's going to be there forever. Matt Everts, next time you do a treasure hunt, let me know. I'm in IT and cryptology. It might help the length of the hunt. I'm hoping next week to launch the treasure hunt Kickstarter. And I don't know if it's going to be successful. I'm not going to make the target very high just so that it goes. But whatever people donate to the treasure hunt Kickstarter will be the treasure that will be hunted for. Every single dime will go into it. And I'll see if I can maximize it by basically buying a bunch of gold coins at auction or something so that, I can get a 10% premium on every single one of those things. And then, I don't know, hide a bunch of gold coins in the desert. But I wrote an entire cryptographical cipher language, and I was really excited to use it for clue number 3 in my treasure hunt, and I never got there. So I have this whole language that I wrote that I really, really, really want to use, and that's going to be clue number 1 on this one. It's going to be what I think is a gnarly code that people who work at the NSA and CIA and hobbyists it'll really blow their minds when someone figures it out. And I'm really excited to do it. So that's my entire goal. And I'm also going to hide the treasure probably at the late end of fall so that all winter long no one can go and find it unless they want to die. And that'll give me a little more leeway and time for people to solve some puzzles. Rather than hiding it in the peak of summer and someone finds it in 47 hours. I'm going to make these clues way harder. They're going to be so hard. They're going to be impossibly hard, and you guys are going to be mad at how hard they are. Because you're a lot smarter than I gave you credit for. So, congratulations. You're going to get hard puzzles. Dark Latin says, there's a post showing the official share count. Adam Aaron said on June 2nd there was 501 million, but on 7/30 it says 513. That's because between then and now they sold 11 million shares via the dark pools directly to short hedge funds to help them close positions. And it was probably the shadiest thing that Adam Aaron had done. Was in that filing, the day that they decided to sell those shares, they amended their filing to say, hey, we're not going to sell these on the open market. We're reserving the right to sell them directly in dark pools for undisclosed prices to short hedge funds to help them close their positions. So it was, and I think Adam Aaron, the blowback he got from that made him go, oh, I really need to pay attention to my retail investors and not lose my job. So I think he's listening to people more now. Frederick Miles asks, Houston, what will be the best cash commodity that we could mine on the moon? It's going to be helium-3. There's also what's called creep, which is potassium, rare earth elements, and phosphorus. Also in the lunar dust is a whole bunch of rare earth elements. I think China is very interested in those rare earth elements because they already dominate the rare earth element market. And as a result of dominating the rare earth element market, they want to keep other people from being able to flood the market with the material you get out of creep, which is such a weird, funny term. And so helium-3 and creep are the two big things on the moon. I'm sure there'll be some operations to explore or exploit the frozen water on the moon for any settlements that are there. We aren't quite sure what the rocks under the surface are like, but my guess is without oceans on the moon, the moon's too small to maintain oceans of any kind, that there isn't much classification between heavier elements. So it's probably all basalt, and the basalt is really hard to get minerals out of economically. So it's kind of like Mars that way. But the lunar dust is full of creep and full of helium-3. So those are the things people will be going for on the moon. Okay, Andrew Vanderhelm. We know it's possible for the squeeze. We know it's possible for the squeeze could possibly hit millions, but would calls potentially hit that point first? Could swinging top out of the money calls be a mega lotto shot? Yeah, totally. The thing about those big deep calls, like if you can buy, I don't know, an $800 call for GameStop that's for, I don't know, a year from now, it will probably go in the money as the squeeze is happening. And if you wait, you can sell that call option for just piles. That's how a lot of folks made a lot of cash with the GameStop baby squeezes. Is, they bought what were thought to be ridiculous call options a year ago when the stock was trading at $2 or $3, right? They bought options for $40 that were due in February or March. And when the price was at $300, they sold those options for like 30 grand each. So there's some money to be made with those options. The thing about the options is they don't contribute to immediate buy pressure to drive up the stock now. What they do is they cause a gamma squeeze later when the price gets higher and higher, and these option houses and options writers have to go find the shares because they sold these options naked. Any of those options that are deep out of the money, they don't have the shares for. They sold those naked, and they'll be forced to enter the market to buy a whole bunch of shares if they get close to in the money or are in the money. Okay. M. Hobson, Houston, if hedgies have been selling millions to billions of synthetics, where's the money, do you think? I think it's in the Bahamas. I think it's in the British Virgin Islands. I think it's in the Caymans. I think it's in Aruba. I think it's in Switzerland. I think it's in Panama. I think it's in a whole bunch of places that have a whole bunch of shady banking practices, and that money is hidden out of reach to U.S. regulators. I wouldn't doubt if they're taking all that money and they dump into some account in the Caymans and they hold it there. They record it as assets of their corporation because it's a subsidiary, but when the bill comes due, they sever that connection and that money is gone. So that's what I think they're doing with that money. New guy investing. We are in a summer slump with GME and AMC. Do you think interest will pick up in August, September, and another wave of FOMO will kick in? What are your top predicted catalysts for the coming weeks? Can we recapture the June magic? I think the big catalysts we're looking at right now are going to be boo-boos in the market. If the debt ceiling isn't raised, we're screwed. If we allow 8 million plus renters and homeowners to get foreclosed or evicted, we're looking at a huge financial crisis in the housing market. I think those two things are really imminent and very important that our government needs to recognize and do something about right now. If that results in the market collapsing, we win, because the assets under management of all those hedge funds collapse with them, and then margin calls will go abound, and they won't have the liquidity necessary to cover those margin calls. So we as individual investors win, but the nation as a whole loses out big time. I think those are probably the main catalysts we're looking at right now. If Congress passes those 11 bills that could throttle the payment for order flows, we could be looking at a change in how dark pools operate and how they mask the actual buy pressure for those stocks. So we could see a natural rise in the price of those stocks as a result. But I'm not sure how long. I doubt they're going to get to it before the close of session, which is at midnight on Saturday. And then they all go on vacation for August. So it might not be till September until we see any talk about those bills. The construction is winding down because construction costs are insane. Normally construction winds down seasonally come wintertime. So the whole construction aspect of the Dow Industrial usually takes a dip come October, November when people shut down construction for the year. But construction has been tailing off because the materials are so expensive that new construction isn't beginning. I understand that the prices are coming down a little bit on those materials, but it still is just stupid expensive. An 8-foot cedar 2x4 is $80. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. That's like tulip bubble level prices for lumber. So there's been a lot of stalling on new construction as a result of those things. So that's another thing that can hurt. Okay. Dingy thingy. If hedge funds are closing their positions through dark pools, how could the MOAS happen? I don't think hedgies are closing their positions through dark pools. I think they're digging the hole deeper through dark pools. The only way they can close positions is by buying our shares, and we're not selling them. And if we aren't selling them, there's no way for them to close those positions. What they're doing through the dark pools is they're swapping debt, they're generating more naked shares, and they're essentially just masking, their positions for a set period of time and resetting those failure to delivers. They're not closing through dark pools at all, because the dark pools aren't the legit shares being sold. They're synthetics all the way down, going through the dark pools. Topical TV. Could the potential blowback from mining on the moon be a fog of regolith building up and damaging equipment? Oh, heck yeah. For those who don't know, the regolith is essentially the dust of the moon. It's really, really sharp barbs of volcanic glass and silica. It will eat away at equipment. It will eat away at spacesuits and just cut through all that material. And it is pervasive, and it gets in the way of things. The longest stay on the moon was 3 days, something like that, and they were already noticing the effects of that material getting into the joints of their suits and cutting through materials. So they trip and fall a lot on the moon. You're in a suit that's pressurized, and imagine like you put on gloves, but you fill the gloves with a bunch of air, and because if you don't fill with a bunch of air, the vacuum of space makes your body want to explode. So you gotta pressurize the suit, and all your fingers are just these puffy, balloons, and you want to grab something. Well, the amount of movement it takes to grab something is you have to move your fingers through the air in your gloves before you even touch the material, and you can grasp. And so it's a lot of work, and it's very tiring to like manipulate things while in a spacesuit. And you're walking, and you're kind of at the same type of thing happening with your boots and your legs, and you're in this bulky thing, and you've got tanks on your back, and you can't move very well, and you can't do a push-up. So you're tripping and falling and just smearing yourself all over this dust. It doesn't take long to destroy a suit on the moon and get all that dust inside the joints of the suit and whatnot. So I can imagine that the machinery may have similar issues with that dust getting everywhere. So I'm not sure what types of mitigation that they're planning for machinery on the moon, or if they're just like accepting that they're going to be replacing parts all the time and having to, pull off axles and re-grease things and put them all back together constantly. But yes, topical TV, very important point. Moon dust sucks. Supreme Vortex, aside from dark pools, is there a reason for a stock to have a 5-to-1 buy to sell ratio drop in price? No, it's all dark pools. It's all dark pools, high frequency trading, and that payment for order flow that's doing that. And selling naked. So selling naked, dark pools, womp. That's what's driving the price down. Okay. Oh. Mupulin. Silverado Canyon has mostly clay, loam, and loam. What does that mean with regard to potential landslides? Big time slides. Clay is really slick, fine silicate material, and when it's wet, it cleaves really easily. So if you look at the Whidbey Island, if you Google Whidbey Island landslide 2013, you will see that entire block, like, there's the clay layer and the water seeped through somewhere, and basically the whole clay layer just like cleaved and slid into the ocean, and it just was like a perfect little scoop that slid down, and that clay layer, the Lawton clay in the Pacific Northwest, is usually where those slides start from. So if Silverado Canyon, you have a lot of clay there, and that stuff gets really wet, and you have an earthquake, you'll probably have slides cleave in these perfect, like, I don't know, I'll describe like an ice. You know, like an ice cream scoop can just take a nice scoop out of ice cream. It will look like that as it scoops out. And what I'd look for is if there's any slopes along that cliff line that's treed, I would look to see if the trees are bowed at the bottom. If they're bowed, that's showing that there's slope creep as this material slowly moves down, and that's a sign also that if you get heavy rains, there can be slides as a result, especially if you get an earthquake in the area. So Mapulin, that's what I look for. Ryan Turner, what are you building out of cedar 2x4s? Well, for my birthday, my dad built me a really cool picnic table, and he wanted to make it out of cedar because cedar is so much lighter, but it was so expensive he had to build out of fir. So the picnic table is beautiful, but man, it weighs like a metric ton. It's so heavy. It takes like 4 of us to move it. But up in the Northwest, cedar's everywhere. All of our forests are cedar forests in the Puget Sound Basin. So cedar's generally been cheap, but it's really expensive at the moment. Diamond Hands asks, what do I think Omoana was? Omomoa, I always say it wrong, and I went to school in Hawaii and I'm just butchering it. Ao Mau Mau. Okay. That's the needle-like extraterrestrial object that passed by our solar system, went around the sun, and then sped off and accelerated away when it should not accelerate away. I think the fact that it accelerated away lends to the credence that it's from an intelligent source. That's probably the most definitive evidence we've ever had that there's an intelligence out there that sent a probe to investigate our solar system. And that's how I see that happening. Mupulin says, you keep talking about water wet. What about an earthquake during the summer dry environment? The landslides won't be as dangerous when it's dry, and the likelihood will be lower of having a landslide in that canyon if it's dried during an earthquake. Clay is really, really tacky and has a lot of friction when it's dry. It's really slippery when it's wet. So hope that if an earthquake happens, it's during that dry season, because you won't get the landslides in the same way as you would if it's a wet season. Charles Park, if we aren't selling our shares, they have no shares to cover, right? Exactly. That's the infinity squeeze right there. If we don't sell our shares until the prices are stupid, then they don't have any of those to sell. Okay. Charles K. Houston Wade, is Moldavite a good investment? I mean, there are some hippies who will pay premium prices for Moldavite, but Moldavite is just a green quartz crystal. It's a green quartz crystal that was splattered into space during an asteroid impact. It basically asteroid impacted in like Bohemia, and all this sand splattered outwards, superheated, froze, made it into space, and then these blobs came down, and they're kind of this beautiful green Heineken bottle color because they're basically made of the same material Heineken bottle is made of. There are hippies who like believe that there's magical properties with this material, but it's just pretty little stones, cool green color, and you can trade them for a decent price if you can find them cheap, or you can find some farmer who will let you go to Germany or Czech Republic and wander around and look through their tilled field to try and find some. You might be able to make some money off of them. Okay. I've got about 15 minutes. I can go there. Mupulin, oh, most welcome. Most welcome for answering your landslide questions. Okay. Just Chillin' asks, why can't we see the dark side of the moon? That's because the moon is stuck in what's called a tidal lock. So the same side of the moon, let's see here, where's a good, the dog ate this ball. All right, this part that says premium leather, right? So the same side of the moon faces us at all times. And this is probably due to when the moon was molten ball after it first formed, the tides were huge. And the tides pulled the moon as much as the rotation of the moon did towards the Earth. And eventually that one side got stuck to the Earth, and so the same side faces the Earth at all times. So now you're seeing the dark side. If the camera is the sun, the dark side is now facing the sun, and we never get to see anything except that same face facing the Earth. So the dark side we will never see unless we send probes out there, satellites to orbit and take pictures of that dark side, which we've done. The Apollo 8 astronauts were the first ones to ever go around that dark side, and they're the first people to lose communication with anyone on Earth for, it's like 20 minutes or whatever. And that's why we don't see the dark side of the moon. The dark side of the moon is more heavily cratered than the side we see, and that's because the Earth is such a larger gravitational mass that things will hit the Earth and block from hitting that side of the moon. Okay. Steny Balaski, wet clay makes lahars, correct? In a way, lahars are generally a term given to mudslides that are the result of volcanoes. So you get a volcanic eruption, a whole bunch of snow and debris gets released, and that stuff flows down. And but it's a similar thing. If you have a flash flood in those regions, you can have a whole bunch of debris get pulled off of clay-rich soils and flow down and kind of get cataclysmic flows of earth and trees and everything else that's in it. AJ, what's the Doomsday which you speak of? Basically, the first is when the moratorium on evictions and home foreclosures ends. If we don't raise the debt ceiling by midnight tomorrow, the 31st, then we will also be facing a complete crash in the market because the value of government bonds collapses. And if the value of government bonds collapses, then the assets under management for every institution around the world also collapses. We've got 33 hours and change to make sure that Congress passes the debt ceiling, because if they don't, that's the end of the economy as we know it. The U.S. credit ratings collapse, the value of Treasury bonds collapse, and there are certain people in Congress kind of holding the debt ceiling hostage as if it's a great negotiating tactic. I think it should be one of those things where we don't negotiate with terrorists. Just raise the debt ceiling, keep going. U.S. debt is so important to the global economy, and those bonds are used as solid assets for so much, for lending, for borrowing, for trading on margin. You need to have a whole bunch of solid government bonds if you want to trade on margin in a large scale. If you're a hedge fund or another institution, yeah. Hey Houston, do you think they will disable shorting when the MOAS begins? Oh man, that's something to think about. So I think they may disable naked shorting because I think the market maker status might be pulled from a whole bunch of institutions when that happens, because those market makers might be facing margin calls and liquidation at the time, so they won't have the ability to do their normal market manipulation. I do think that folks who perhaps legit borrow shares and hold on to them and wait to sell them until the MOAS, they can make a small fortune or a large fortune, because they'll sell those shares for just piles of money. The buying of the trading computers will end, the price will drop, and that's when they'll scoop up legit shares again and repay those loans. I do think there'll be a few institutions that make a killing if they can borrow legit shares and short them during the MOAS. I think there'd be few and far between because there aren't that many shares available to do that, but I do think it's possible. But I also think that the market makers who have been naked shorting will probably lose access to that due to being liquidated at the time. G sends a super chat. In the SEC filings on 8th of December 2020, I see our charter authorizes us to issue up to 300 million shares. So GME can sell straight to short hedge funds if they agree to pay a premium. Example, 100 million shares at $2,000. Yes-ish. I think they still have to get permission from the shareholders to issue those shares. They did have 100 million shares out there, and when they started getting shorted a lot and their stock tanking, they did a buyback of 30 million shares to bolster the price to keep from being delisted from the NASDAQ. But essentially the company itself owns 225 million shares at this point, and with permission they can break off some of those shares and sell them to market to raise money. Right now they don't need to because they're flush with cash, and they're likely going to be generating profits in the quarters to come. So, and I don't think they're going to get permission from the retail investors to dump, 200 million plus shares on the market. Okay. Alturius, what's going on with the Torch dividend? As in, I haven't heard anyone say lately they haven't got theirs. If we all got the dividend shares, how does that work if there were tons of synthetics? Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say they haven't gotten them in a while. Perhaps they did all sorts of weird share swapping between brokerages to make sure that retail investors had those things. I don't know. I haven't heard anybody say they haven't gotten theirs in a while. So that maybe all the retail investors have theirs and aren't complaining about it at the moment. Which would mean, did the institutions who lent their shares get them? I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. Good question, though. Good question. The dividend itself hasn't been issued because they haven't finished selling off their oil fields yet. So I don't know when that cash is going to happen. When that cash dividend is going to happen. Okay. Just chilling. Houston, do you believe in evolution? If so, when will apes become zoo human? Apes in the zoo become human. I do believe in evolution. We see evolution all the time, every day. We've even witnessed evolution of speciation, and a lot of people don't realize that. The speciation isn't that hard. What defines a species is basically a divergence of one species into another is when these things either can't or won't mate with each other. Or they can't produce a viable offspring. So like you can get a lion and a tiger to mate, but their offspring is infertile. And you can get a horse and a donkey to mate, but a mule is their offspring and they're infertile. So those are two separate species. Like dogs are breeds because dogs will bone any other dog and they'll make a mutt of some kind, right? So they have not speciated, but they may have distinct breeds that have certain traits. There's a flower called the goat's beard flower. And in like the 1940s or 50s, this flower made its way from somewhere in Eastern Europe, like Romania, somewhere in there, to Eastern Washington. and and it only took about 30 or 40 years for that plant to speciate from the goat's beard flower that was found in where it came from in Eastern Europe. And how it speciated was its genes doubled. So the number of genes available doubled, so that the pollen no longer has the same number of chromosomes as the original flower, has the same number of chromosomes as the current goat's beard flower found in eastern Washington. So it's a completely new species of goat's beard flower due to a genetic mutation that happened. We see evolution happen in really quickly in things like bacteria that reproduce quickly, or in like the COVID virus, the RNA virus. So RNA is, if DNA is two strands of material, you get the C's, G's, T's, and A's connecting up. RNA is just one of those strands. And if you don't require matching pairs to happen, then it's easier for the material on the RNA strand to mutate after generations. So yeah, we've got a lot. When will the apes become humans? Probably when our medical experimentations on them make them smart, just like in the Planet of the Apes movies. And believe me, they're scientists. I know of one neuroscientist who's working for DARPA doing exactly that, trying to increase the intelligence levels of primates. So there's money being spent on it right now. Fabian Garcia, thank you for the super chat donation there. Thank you. All right, I got like 5 minutes, and then I've got to take this dog for her long walk for the day. Richard Solomon must have gone bonkers there. A whole bunch of the stuff deleted there. Oh, super chat from Clayton Gross. Hey man, love listening to your knowledge. I'm in LA, Lower Arkansas. Have you been to this area looking for gold or diamonds? I've been through Arkansas, but it's been a long time. I do have a hope. I want to do the Transamerica Trail at some point, and that takes you through all sorts of different hill regions in Arkansas that I would really want to check out. But it's been a long time. Been since I was 18, since I really last spent any time in Arkansas, and I really wasn't into rocks then, so I haven't done too much exploration there. But I do want to go Crater of Diamonds and give people who go there a whole bunch of inside scoops on how to get diamonds out of the ground. Because the key is grease. Diamonds are hydrophobic, and they love grease, and they love organic material sticking to them, and they don't like water. So if you can get a grease system going, a grease table going, you can start getting more diamonds out of Crater of Diamonds. Pal Guitars says, are you 100% sure the MOAS will happen, or does the hedgies may have other tricks up their sleeves? Do you have different scenarios you could share? Well, I don't see how the hedge funds get out of this without closing their positions. I think what they're trying to do is drag it out for so long that we give up. And so far, they're doing a good job dragging it out. I don't think they're doing a good job in getting us to give up. Because what else do we have to do? What else do we have to lose? We just sit and wait and sit and wait and sit and wait. They don't have tricks to close their positions. What they do have are tricks to hide their positions. So they sell naked shares. They borrow stocks and use those stocks to repay previous debts. And those naked shares don't get closed. What happens is that they'll either buy a whole bunch of options they won't exercise, and then they'll say, hey, I can cover that position when needed because I have all these options over here. And that's not closing their position. That's just sort of covering their position temporarily. Or those naked shares get to the T35 date when they're going to be forced to be liquidated, and they do a swap of debt with someone else and reassign the ownership of those, and that resets the 35-day clock. So they're doing lots of stuff to pull shenanigans and to draw this out. Eventually, someone's going to want their money, and they're not going to be able to mask that for much longer. And I think that's where we are. Is we're just in that waiting for someone to be like, bitch, I want my money. And then it begins. So it might be some whale, it might be some big financial institution who just gets tired of this game, or it might be the federal government finally cracking down on naked short selling and the loopholes that are involved in that for the market makers. We'll wait and see. I think if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised by tomorrow night, all of those tricks and gimmicks might be out of their hands at that point, because if the bond market collapses, then everything goes with it. Mike Millspa, Earth to Houston. Some say AMC should hire Wes Christian or another expert to carry out an investigation of hedge funds and brokerage firms in connection with naked shorting of AMC. What do you say? Bring it. You know, I think we need to have, and probably will have, a whole bunch of lawsuits surrounding the MOAS in general, because one of the things that needs to happen is someone needs to successfully subpoena the DTCC and show us the books on their trading computer, the central trading computer that holds all these fast shares, so we can see exactly how many synthetic shares are out there and who they're assigned to, and you know, why this stuff has been closed. Because essentially naked shorting is counterfeiting. It's counterfeiting shares, it's counterfeiting money. You're just basically printing money, and you're doing it through a legal loophole. And so far, every lawsuit that's been involved with naked shorting, somehow the DTCC has avoided ever answering a subpoena to show people the books. And they're powerful. They're powerful people, and I don't know why a judge has not been like, yeah, show us the books. It's very strange. Carlos Oreno Cruz. Thanks, Houston. I always enjoy listening to your shows. Keep up the good work. Oh, thank you, Carlos. Thank you for the super chat there. Very kind. Talvin 4. Man, my plum tree went nuts this year. Thing loaded so much the lower branches are nearly touching the ground. Yeah. This year was kind of a brutal plum year for us. The ones that made it were delicious. But normally the whole tree just like look like a weeping willow. Just this like sunk down, droopy thing. And we have to prop it up with like 2x4s to keep the branches from snapping off, or from like the plums all just like falling on the ground and getting gross. Yeah, it was so hot in June this year that a lot of those plums just didn't make it. They look like they got like lasers bored through them on the sides that face the sun. Okay. Static Dean and Stock Talk talking about how they've got the dividend shares, but there's no value. Yeah, there is no value in them because they've not. Those things are just placeholders. They're IOUs for when they actually issue the dividend, because it's taking longer than what they had planned to sell off all their oil fields for for a Torchlight. So you're just gonna have this like no value preferred share that can't be traded, just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until they finally sell everything and issue a cash dividend. Okay. And I want to thank the mods. Like, I don't know what Richard Stellman was saying, because I never made it to that part of the chat, but you guys took care of it and kept my sanity. So thank you. Fabian Garcia says, Houston, remind me where I can buy the Sears holding stock. Fidelity wouldn't let me do it. It's on their restricted list, but Schwab did. I was able to buy through Schwab. And if you're using one of those apps, the payment for order flow apps like Robinhood or Webull or whatever, you're not going to be able to buy OTC stocks or pink sheets. You can only do it through like a big brokerage firm. All right. Oh, it's past 2:30. I'm gonna do one more question, and then I gotta get going for the day. Jay Shinkle says, with over 80% retail ownership and over 15% institutional ownership, aren't all the legal shares bought already? Yes. That's kind of where we are, is that all the shares that can be owned are owned. What we want to know is how much in excess of that are out there. because the retail investors, the survey or poll or whatever that Adam Aaron talked about last month or in May, I can't remember when it was, but it was like 2 months ago or so. He mentioned that there's 500 million shares owned by retail. Well, that's all the shares in existence, right? And then like, oh, then there's another 15% owned by institutions. Well, okay, so you now are admitting that there's more shares out there than have been issued. And that didn't count foreign investors. And foreign investors are usually 40% of investment in American companies. So 40% of that 600 million is going to come out to like 30 or 40 million shares. So there's, 300 to 400 million shares. So we're looking at 800 million shares that are possibly in existence, at least for AMC. So the retail investors own it all easily, and then some. All right. All right. Elevated Finance says, that's the important question. The regulatory powers be knowing and not doing anything about this forgery through legal outlets. They typically call that an accomplice. Yeah, they're basically doing that. If the SEC isn't doing investigations, well, if the SEC isn't enforcing, essentially they're acting as like an accomplice in this. But someone posted an interesting thing. They did a Freedom of Information Act request for documents pertaining to Citadel from the SEC, and the SEC replied, "We cannot provide you those documents because it would hurt an ongoing investigation." So they basically confirmed that Citadel is under investigation for market manipulation. Who knows if they'll actually find and be like, okay, we're going to do something about this, or if they're going to be like, we investigated ourselves and found ourselves innocent. I'm not sure. But the fact that they wouldn't provide that documentation means that they're actively under investigation. That's pretty crazy. All right, everybody. I got to take this dog for a walk. She's so bored out of her minds. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so sorry that my fancy new Streamlabs software that I just paid a fortune for shit the bed on me. So I hope to figure this out. You may see me accidentally pop up on a stream at some point this weekend while I try to play with the software and figure it out. You're welcome to join and watch me just stare at the computer like this for a long time. But man, I really want to be able to pop the chats in the screen. That's why I bought this, is to be able to take your chats and show them on screen so that you can see them up there. I think it's important to be able to see that. But all right, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see what the weekend holds and folds for us, and hope that debt ceiling gets raised.